In the frozen dawn of Elturi 3, where twin suns barely warmed the jagged edges of its ice-crusted valleys, a lone human trudged up a cliff trail with a bucket in each frostbitten hand. Her name was Kayla Rhynin, exobiologist, widow, and the only human soul living in the abandoned mining settlement of Dreltham Ridge. Once a colonial outpost of 23 families, it had become a ghost town after the collapse of the central stabilizer platform a decade ago. The mines were emptied, the contracts pulled, and the people gone. But Kayla stayed, because of a promise, and because of what she found. Her boots crunched over brittle layers of snow and stardust as she crested the final slope, exhaling a cloud of white breath that dissolved into the pale morning light. At the edge of a blackened cave, half buried under the mountain stone jaw, a nest made of copper tubing, discarded blankets, and plasteel scaffolding rested between stalagmite ribs. Something stirred within it. A low chuff. A flicker of embers. Kayla smiled softly. "You're awake early, Flamebug." From the dark hollow, two slit-pupil eyes opened, violet and shimmering like melted opal. A clawed snout lifted, steam rising off scaled nostrils. The creature uncoiled itself with the cautious grace of something once broken but healing. Its wings were stunted. One of the membranes still bore the telltale scar of a mining drone's slicing rotor. But the rest of it, gleaming obsidian scales, smooth under her hand, had grown strong. Powerful. Proud. The drake was nearly 5 meters long now. 7 years ago, it had been the size of a cat, barely surviving beneath the cracked belly of its dead mother's nest. Back then, Kayla had only intended to scan the carcass for data. Draconoid corpses, even rare ones, fetched fortunes on the black markets, especially the skeletal ridges which hinted at off-world genetic hybrids. But instead of rare minerals or salvageable DNA, she'd found a baby. Cold, weak, eyes closed, chest barely rising. She didn't name it right away. She wasn't sure it would survive the night, but it had, and 7 years later, it still greeted her every morning with that same breathy huff and gentle bump of its scaled head against her side. Kayla set the buckets down, one filled with freshly thawed ice beast marrow, the other with her homemade protein blend infused with trace minerals. The drake's tongue lolled out as it leaned in with barely restrained eagerness. I know. You're starving. You're always starving." She sat beside him while he fed, the warmth of his breath seeping through her thermal gear. She scratched beneath his jaw where a small patch of iridescent scales had begun forming, a sign of maturity if the readings from her handheld were to be believed. What troubled her wasn't the growth. It was the pattern. Draconids from the old star charts didn't evolve like this. Not with psionic patterns in their neural scans. Not with empathy echoes or mimicry abilities. And definitely not with the ability to understand basic Terran speech by year 5. "Tell me again you're just a dragon, and not something older." He paused and looked at her, muzzle tipped. Kayla. Her heart stuttered. He'd said her name before. Twice. Both times accidental, she thought. Mimicry. Reflex. But this time his gaze held something deeper, something almost conscious. She blinked. Do it again. But he was already eating again. Kayla stood, brushing off her gloves and scanning the skies. The eastern horizon was tinged with blue-pink haze, meaning a weather front was pushing in from the polar ridge. She needed to get the outside sensors recalibrated before the winds buried them again. Still, she hesitated. That look, it hadn't just been mimicry. It had been memory. She turned back to the drake. "I'm going to the outpost. Don't leave the cave." "Got it." He licked the marrow from the inner walls of the bucket and flicked his tail once. Good enough. Kayla trekked down the slope with practice care. The wind was rising, and the long-range comm towers had been picking up strange transmissions again. Faint echoes. Code fragments. She dismissed it for months. Just old mining pings or cosmic noise bouncing off the mountain range. But lately the signals felt patterned, like a pulse or call. Back at her shelter, a reinforced dome of salvage structures and stitched polycarbon she'd modified into a functional lab home. Kayla plugged into the satellite array and pulled the latest spectrum readings. Her brows furrowed. There was again. The same three-note sequence on the cue band, barely detectable. But not random. She ran a translation matrix against known language bases. Nothing. Then she remembered something odd. 2 months ago, the Drake had exhaled a spark of light during a seizure-like episode. The pattern from the flare, when she recorded it, had looked familiar, but she couldn't place it. Now, comparing the wavelengths, her skin crawled. They matched. The signal bouncing through Eltari's mountains wasn't just noise. It was the same signature the Drake had emitted when distressed. Kayla's fingers hovered over the console. She needed to report this. But to whom? The Colonial Science Council had labeled Eltari 3 a red zone, uninhabitable, irrelevant. No comm had left the surface in years without bouncing endlessly through relic relay buoys. Still, she activated the encrypted log recorder. Field Report 19-7A, she began. Subject Flamebug has reached estimated maturity. Unexpected psionic markers are increasing. New discovery. Subject appears to be echoing or producing quantum signal patterns consistent with unknown alien transmissions. Urgency rating moderate. Request cross-spectrum analysis and genetic reconfirmation if retrieval is possible. She paused, then looked through the frost-tinted dome toward the distant peak where the Drake slept, or if contact is ever reestablished. Just then, a deep tremor rolled beneath her feet. She froze. No seismic alerts had triggered. No tectonic activity registered. But she knew that sound. It was the same low-frequency hum she'd heard 7 years ago, the day she'd found the nest. Only this time, it was stronger. Closer. Kayla pulled on her thermal coat again and stepped outside. A crack of wind lashed her hood, and the snow skittered around her feet like frightened insects. She looked up toward the mountain cave, and her breath caught. The Drake was standing on the ledge, head raised, eyes glowing, and above him, high in the stratosphere, a shimmer peeled away from the clouds like liquid silver. Something massive was decloaking. Something not from this planet, not from this time, and not alone. Kayla's heart pounded as the signal on her console tripled in strength, now clearly pulsing through the valley. 3 notes, then silence, then a fourth. One the Drake answered with a roar that shook the mountain itself. The silence that followed the roar was not empty. It was heavy, thick with meaning, like the pause before a dam breaks or the beat before a verdict is spoken aloud. Kayla stood frozen in the snow, watching the sky ripple with unnatural color, her mind racing. The thing above the mountain was still revealing itself. Jagged edges shimmered into view. Massive and alien, its surface iridescent with pulsing sigils that morphed too fast for her brain to interpret. It wasn't a ship in the conventional sense. It was older, architectural almost, like a temple hollowed out and flown through stars. And somehow, it was responding to the Drake. No, not just responding, communicating. The signal that once echoed across empty valleys was now direct, targeted. Her instruments were screaming with quantum entanglement anomalies, microgravity spikes, and magnetosphere inversions. And Flamebug, the Drake, wasn't afraid. He was singing back. Kayla bolted up the ridge. Her breath came in ragged bursts, half from a sprint and half from disbelief. Her boots slipped on the frost-rimed stone as she scrambled upward, fingers clawing at icy ledges. The drone she'd left at the cave mouth whirred nervously, its sensor stalk spinning like a startled animal. The moment she reached the plateau, the Drake turned toward her. "Kayla," he said again, more clearly this time. No static, no uncertainty. She stopped short. "You're speaking." He blinked slowly, awakened by her. "You. 7 years. Nourishment. Connection. Memory returns." Kayla's hands trembled. "What are you?" His wings flared, lifting snow in a gust. Not dragon. Not only. The sky thundered above them as the alien craft finished uncloaking. It hovered without sound, impossible in scale. And from beneath it, a beam of golden blue energy lanced toward the valley, intersecting with the coordinates of her research shelter. Her dome exploded in a bloom of light. "No!" Kayla screamed, falling to her knees as the ground shook. The shockwave nearly flung her off the ridge. She clutched the stone and grit her teeth against the heat and the ache rising in her throat. Everything she'd worked for, gone. Her data, her logs, her home. I warned, the drake said softly. They come, not to speak, to claim. They? Who are they? She rasped. The drake tilted its head, as if listening. The Forgeborn, first Skyblood, builders, killers of my kind. They return. Her head spun. Return? Are you saying you remember them? From before. He nodded. Before stars cooled. Before memory lost in fire. Kayla stared at him, heart pounding. She'd suspected he wasn't a normal life form, even by alien standards. The neural mapping, the accelerated comprehension, the resilience. But this was ancient, precursor-level sentience, a relic in flesh and fire. Then came the second signal, this time from behind. Her comm crackled. Repeat, this is UNS vessel Vanguard Dawn responding to an emergency pulse from Altari 3. Human biosign detected. Kayla RHYNN, are you receiving? Kayla snatched the wrist module from her torn sleeve, hands fumbling with the controls. Yes, this is Kayla. I'm alive. My shelter was just destroyed by an unknown entity. I'm on the north face of Dreltham Ridge. And she glanced at Flamebug, who stood like a guardian beside her, wings flaring. I'm not alone. There was a pause. RHYNN, please repeat. Did you say not alone? She exhaled. There's a draconic being with me. Not hostile. Sentient. Possibly ancient precursor life form. And it's in contact with the entity that destroyed my base. Silence again. Then another voice came over the channel. Deeper. Stern. This is Commander Revik of Vanguard Dawn. Your signal has been triangulated. We are deploying a retrieval team. Hold position. Do not engage with the anomaly. Confirm. Kayla bit her lip. Confirmed. The line went dead. Flamebug. No, she couldn't keep calling him that anymore. He was something else. Turned his head sharply, his gaze narrowing. They come with weapons, he said. Fear in their hearts. Like before. I'll explain. They just want to protect. They will try to kill. And Kayla didn't know if he was wrong. Within the hour, the dropship broke through the upper cloud layers like a blade. It descended fast, flanked by 2 escort drones, scanning everything with tight beam lasers and EM pulses. The Drake withdrew into the shadows of the cave as the ship landed. Kayla stood at the edge of the slope, arms raised in a universal signal of peace, though her pulse raced like thunder in her ears. The ship's ramp hissed open, releasing a squad of 6 armored Marines, 3 Terran, 3 from the Allied worlds. Commander Revik stepped out last, his gray and crimson armor bearing the emblem of Earth's expansion fleet. His expression was unreadable beneath the tactical visor, but the plasma rifle strapped across his chest was very real. Kayla RHYNN, he said without preamble. You've been listed MIA for 7 years, and now we find you feeding a fire-breathing anomaly under an alien ship. Mind explaining that? She managed a grim smile. Not really, but I can show you. Revik motioned to his second. Scan the ridge. If anything breathes wrong, tag it. Kayla led them slowly up toward the cave. The wind howled across the stone, but Flamebug didn't emerge until she knelt beside the entrance. It's okay, she whispered. I trust you. He stepped forward, not looming but calm. Measured. Regal. The Marines raised their rifles instantly. Revik barked, hold. The Drake spoke again, louder this time. I am Ashrakar, last of the Star-Scorched, forged in the breath of gods, fed by Kayla of Earth. The squad froze. Revik stared at her, jaw clenched. It talks. Kayla nodded. He's been remembering. More every day. And the ship above? It's not here by accident. It's following him. Ashrakar's voice rang out again, deeper now. They returned for what they once failed to tame. Revik's hand twitched near his weapon. Defined they, the answer didn't come from Ashrakar. It came from the sky. A beam of light fired from the alien vessel, not down this time, but across the sky, carving a rift through the atmosphere like slicing paper. The rift shimmered, then tore open, and from within it, Hundreds of shapes emerged, sleek, dark, winged, drone-like entities in an arrowhead formation, descending like locusts toward the valley. Kayla's eyes widened in horror. "Oh God," Revik shouted. "Scramble the vanguard. We've got an incursion. Repeat, a hostile incursion." But Ashrakar had already moved. He stepped past Kayla, past the squad, his wings unfolding fully for the first time in years. His body crackled with radiant heat, veins glowing as if magma pulsed through his bones. "7 years you fed me," he said to Kayla, voice like thunder. 7 years I dreamed in silence. Now I awaken. He launched skyward, and the world ignited. Flame and storm collided as the first wave of enemy drones reached the ridge. Ashrakar's body spun through the air like a living comet, shredding machines with tail, claw, and fire. But they were countless, and he was only one. Kayla was still staring upward when something struck the ground beside her, hard. An enemy drone, sleek and spider-like, skittered from the edge of the cliff, landing on all fours. It scanned her, and then lunged. Into Section 2. The enemy drone came fast, low and silent like a hunting cat, optical sensors glowing blue as it leapt at Kayla, metal limbs outstretched. She twisted, instinct overriding thought, and brought up her arm. Her reinforced bracer intercepted the drone's claw, and the impact sent a jolt through her entire body. Pain lanced up her shoulder, but she didn't fall. Years of surviving alone on Eltari. 3 had made her stronger than she looked. The drone hissed, an artificial, chittering noise, and reared back for another strike. Then it froze. Its body spasmed, limbs twitching erratically. Smoke erupted from its joints, and a sudden electric whine filled the air. It collapsed mid-pounce, sizzling. A smoking hole melted through its core. Revik stood 10 feet behind her, plasma rifle steaming. "Get behind me." Kayla scrambled to her feet, breath ragged, vision swimming with adrenaline. "I said do not engage," Revik snapped, pulling her back. "What the hell is going on here?" Kayla didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the sky. Ashrakar was still fighting, more ferocious than anything she'd imagined. His flames scoured the air in wide arcs, melting drones mid-flight. His wings beat with raw force, cracking the cloud line with every thunderous flap. But the swarm was adapting, learning. They were outmaneuvering him now. Kayla turned to Revik. "They're here for him, and if we don't help him, we all die." Revik scowled. "That thing is a living weapon, a relic. Whatever those things are, Forgeborn, he called them. They're not after us. They're here to retrieve or destroy it." "He has a name," Kayla snapped. "Ashrakar, and he's alive. He's not some artifact you can just classify and contain." Revik's visor flashed as the HUD inside his helmet scanned incoming threats. "Right now, I don't give a damn what he's called. All I know is your pet dragon just lit up a starship, and now a second breach is forming over the southern hemisphere." Kayla turned sharply. "Second breach?" A deep rumble confirmed it. The very air felt wrong, like pressure building behind the eyes, like gravity deciding it wanted to rewrite its rules. She looked up beyond the ridgeline, where a second rift now yawned open across the sky, like a festering wound. Through it, more Forgeborn poured, sleek, metallic shapes descending in ritual formation, forming patterns too perfect to be natural. And that's when it happened. Ashrakar faltered. He flared mid-air, once brilliantly, then spiraled downward in a hard arc. His body struck the mountainside, shearing stone, and slammed into the valley floor with a force that shook the heavens. "No!" Kayla shouted, breaking from the marine line. She sprinted toward the impact site, ignoring Revik's orders, ignoring the growing panic around her. Drones were swarming the mountain now. Fighters from the Vanguard Dawn had entered the atmosphere, engaging in sweeping aerial battles, but Kayla could only hear the pulse in her ears. Ashrakar had fallen. The crater was massive. Steam billowed from it as she slid down the snowy slope. She could see his form, broken but still glowing. His scales cracked, smoke curling from his side where one of the drones had pierced his ribs. He was alive. Barely. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Ashrakar," she whispered, clutching his scaled snout with both hands. His violet eyes opened, dim but aware. Too many, they are endless. You can't give up now. You said they failed to tame you. You're not done fighting. I remember more now, he said, voice faint. They didn't just come for me. Kayla blinked. What? They forged us, he rasped. My kind. Not Boar-made. Slaves. Sentinels. Weapons, until we burned the stars to break free. Her breath hitched. Your kind, she murmured, was created by them. Ashrakar nodded once, slow and painful. We rebelled, but only a few escaped. I was hidden in flesh made small, buried beneath worlds. That explained the scans, the unnatural resilience, the hybrid DNA. He wasn't just an ancient species. He was engineered, a living god machine built for war, hidden in a dragon's shell. And now, after all this time, they'd come to reclaim him, or erase him. Tears blurred Kayla's vision. She had cared for him like a child, nursed him, fed him, loved him. He had never been a pet. He had been family, and she would not lose him to the machines that made him. From above, more drones descended toward the crater. Kayla stood slowly, her heart cold as iron. She turned to see Revik and his soldiers reaching the rim, weapons raised. They're coming again, one of the Marines shouted. We've got another squad dropping in from the ridge. Revik barked orders, but Kayla wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on the drone swarm, and on the strange light beginning to rise from Ashrakar's body. Golden, pulsing, alive. Move away from it, Revik shouted. That energy spike is unstable. No, Kayla said. It's him. Ashrakar was glowing brighter now. The fractures in his body weren't just bleeding light, they were repairing. She realized something impossible. He was absorbing the energy from the Forgeborn weapons, recycling it, healing. Ashrakar, she whispered, what are you doing? Unlocking what I was before fear caged me. And with a roar that shattered the air, he exploded upward from the crater in a blast of solar fire. But he wasn't alone, because from the second rift, something else emerged. A shape, titanic, winged not with membrane, but with blades of prismatic energy. Humanoid in silhouette, but in no way human. It descended slowly, hovering above the battlefield, its eyes shining with cold indifference. Ashrakar turned midair and froze. Kayla saw the hesitation, the recognition. That is not Forgeborn, he whispered. The new arrival raised its hand, and the Forgeborn drones stopped mid-flight, as if awaiting orders. Then it spoke, not with sound, but directly into Kayla's mind. Unit Ashrakar, 0. Your reclamation has been terminated. You are now considered a Class Omega anomaly. Protocol 0 applies. Humanity has breached containment parameters. Total reset imminent. Kayla stumbled, clutching her temples. Her ears rang. Blood dripped from her nose. What the hell was that? Revik gasped, also affected. Ashrakar didn't answer. He was shaking. Kayla stared at him. Ashrakar, what does Protocol 0 mean? He turned slowly, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. It means the annihilation of everything on this planet. The sky darkened, the rift widened, and above them all, the prismatic being lifted both hands. And the stars began to fall. The stars were falling like judgment. Not meteors, not ships, not even debris. They were controlled, manipulated, turned into weapons. Each point of light streaking through the darkening sky carried with it a gravitational signature strong enough to punch holes through mountains, cities, entire biospheres. The being that had emerged from the rift, the one that had frozen even Ashrakar with fear, was not just another construct of the Forgeborn. It was something higher, a failsafe. Protocol 0. Ashrakar muttered again, wings spread, light pouring from the scars still mending across his body. I thought it was only myth, a punishment they threatened us with. I didn't believe they'd ever activate it. Kayla stood at the base of the ridge, frozen between awe and terror. The temperature around them dropped as the atmosphere began shifting from the kinetic distortions overhead. The gravity pulsed unnaturally, drawing breath from her lungs like a vice. Revik grabbed her arm. We have to go. Now. Kayla didn't move. If we run, we die tired. That thing didn't come here for us. It came for him, and it's going to destroy the entire planet to do it. Ashrakar landed beside them, the ground cracking beneath his bulk. He's right. I am the anomaly they can't control. And to prevent my memory, my truth, from reaching others, they'll erase this world and everything on it. Kayla stepped toward him. Then stop it. He looked down at her. I can't. Not alone. Not anymore. You were forged by them, she said. But you broke free. That power still lives inside you. You just need help. Need a way to channel it. She turned to Revik. I need a link to the Vanguard Dawn. Its main array has a core harmonizer, right? We can amplify his resonance through the ship's field coils. Revik stared at her. That's not how the array works. We make it work, Kayla cut in, or we all die. Revik hesitated, then tapped his calm command. We're initiating an unauthorized systems override. Prepare to reroute all ship energy toward a localized ground target. Full spectrum. Authorization Revik 07. A pause crackled through the channel. Then, confirmed. All systems rerouting. Kayla climbed onto Ashrakar's shoulder, holding tight as he leapt into the air, wings buffeting the ground with gale force winds. Revik barked orders into his comms, rallying the remaining Marines to hold the line. Drones swarmed, but now they focused on him, the rogue anomaly. Ashrakar soared through the atmosphere, Kayla gripping a makeshift control harness she'd once stitched to his saddle in year 2, when he could barely fly across the cave. Now his wings cut through the clouds like scythes. Ahead of them, the prismatic being raised its hand. Another surge of pain ripped through Kayla's skull as it spoke again. Voice in thought, in flesh, in bone. Anomaly persists. Override complete. Initiate starburn. The largest of the stars above shifted course. Not just falling, collapsing, turning inward, preparing to detonate. It's turning the system's sun into a weapon, Ashrakar said grimly. Compression level ignition. They're going to nova the planet. Then we stop it. Now, from orbit, the Vanguard Dawn powered up. Massive coils on its spine lit with cascading light. A spherical energy distortion formed in its forward dish, ready to beam its core resonance directly to the ground. Kayla adjusted her handheld interface, manually aligning Ashrakar's chest plates with the resonance pattern. Ready, Ashrakar growled. Born ready. She triggered the pulse. The sky exploded. The beam from the Vanguard Dawn connected with Ashrakar midair. His body lit like a dying star reigniting, veins glowing, wings extending into bladed arcs of plasma, his voice deepening into a layered rumble that echoed across dimensions. Kayla screamed as the force nearly threw her off, but she held on. Below them, the earth trembled. Above them, the prismatic entity reeled. Unauthorized activation. Recontainment required. Begin erasure. The entity formed a blade of radiant white and hurled it toward them. It cleaved the air with a scream of compressed time. Ashrakar twisted, dodging mid-flight, but the blade still struck his wing, a searing flash and a bellow of pain. Kayla was thrown free. She tumbled through the air, falling fast, the cold wind ripping her screams away, until another shape caught her. Revik's aerial unit, one of the smaller patrol skiffs, shot underneath her just in time. She landed hard, gasping, bruised but alive. Couldn't let you do this alone, Revik grunted, piloting one-handed. You scientists always forget gravity. Kayla leaned over the railing, looking up. We have to get it back in position. You can't channel without full alignment. Revik nodded. Hold on. He punched the thrusters. In the sky, Ashrakar was fighting through the pain. Still glowing, still burning, but weakening. The beam from his ship sputtered, losing coherence. And the prismatic god being was descending, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Kayla activated the override again. Come on, she whispered. One more spark. Ashrakar roared, and then something changed. His scales flared with impossible brightness. His form elongated. Wings became radiant light. He was no longer flesh and blood, but pure will, a manifestation of rebellion and memory made real. He spoke, not to Kayla, not to the humans, but to the Forgeborn, to their maker. I am no longer yours. The sky cracked. A pulse wave rippled out from him, shattering drones mid-air, dissolving synthetic armor like dust. The rift began to shrink, like a funnel reversing its spin. The entity raised both hands to resist, but Ashrakar struck. Claws of flame met blades of light. Kayla watched from the skiff, tears streaming down her face. The final clash was silent. A flash, a scream without sound, a ripple across reality, and then silence. Ashrakar and the entity were gone. The rift sealed shut. The stars returned to their natural places. The sky cleared. Only the wind remained. Kayla collapsed to her knees on the deck of the skiff, staring up at the emptiness where the battle had just raged. Her heart felt hollow. Her arms trembled. All that light, gone in an instant. Rivik didn't say anything. He just sat beside her. And for the first time in years, the sky above Eltari 3 was clear. But the silence hurt, because she didn't know if he was coming back. 3 days passed before anyone could speak Kayla's name without looking away first. The battle over Eltari 3 had ended in one final blinding flash, but scars remained. Across the mountains, across the sky, and across every survivor's heart. The rift was gone. The Forgeborn swarm had vanished along with the star god that led them. And Ashrakar, her Ashrakar, was nowhere to be found. The Vanguard Dawn had stayed in orbit, scanning relentlessly. Drones swept the atmosphere, probing for trace radiation signatures, psionic residue, or anomalous gravitational echoes. Kayla requested updates hourly. She rarely slept. She rarely ate. None of them found a body. None of them found a signal. And none of them dared to suggest he was dead. Not to her, because Kayla RHYN was no longer just the scientist who disappeared into exile 7 years ago. She was a woman who'd fed a baby dragon back to life, then watched him become something the galaxy had forgotten could exist. Hope. She sat on the observation deck of the Vanguard Dawn now, the endless stars glittering beyond the glass. The ship's orbit passed nightly over the crater where he had once fallen. Her eyes followed every detail of the surface, lips slightly parted, heart straining for something. Anything. Still nothing. Rivik asked gently behind her. She didn't turn. Still nothing. He walked up beside her, no longer in full combat armor. His uniform was simpler now, patched and dusted from groundwork. There were more lines around his eyes, too. Everyone had changed. Engineering wants you to review the last resonance logs, he said. Your readings are still the clearest signature we've got. They'll tell us the same thing they've told us for days, Kayla murmured. That he burned too hot. That the energy wasn't sustainable. That he turned into something else. And maybe that's why they can't find him. And maybe, Rivik hesitated, maybe that means he isn't gone. Just beyond our reach. She finally looked at him. You believe that? Rivik shrugged. I believe in things I didn't used to. A week ago, I'd never seen a dragon burst through a Forgeborn war formation with his heart glowing like a supernova. So, yeah, I'm open to new beliefs. Kayla gave a sad, tired smile. He was never just a dragon. He was the last of a rebellion. A secret the stars tried to forget. And now you're the only one who remembers it. Not just me, she said softly. He changed you too. I saw the way you looked at him in the end. Not like a weapon. Like someone who mattered. Rivik exhaled, folding his arms. Yeah, he mattered. They stood in silence for a while, watching the dark sky slowly lighten as the twin suns crept over the horizon. Then the ship's intercom buzzed. Commander Rivik, Dr. RHYN, priority message from Colonial Command. You're wanted in Central Ops. Directive Sigma 1. Rivik raised a brow. That's the first real contact from them in weeks. Kayla nodded slowly. Let's go. The operations deck was alive with hushed voices and blinking lights. Kayla and Rivik stepped into the briefing chamber to find 3 high-ranking officers waiting via HoloLink. 2 humans and a Varellan representative. The projection flickered with static, but their expressions were unmistakably serious. Dr. Kayla RHYN. One of them began, You've been identified as the primary witness to and participant in one of the most significant extrasapient events in recorded history. I didn't participate, Kayla said. I raised him. The Varellan emissary nodded. Precisely why we're here. Rivik folded his arms. What's this about? The human admiral leaned forward. We're launching a new division. One that doesn't just study ancient alien threats. One that understands the forgotten forces of the universe. We're calling it the Genesis Accord. Kayla's eyes narrowed. Genesis? As in what came before? What was built? What was erased? The Admiral's voice turned grave. The Forgeborn weren't just scavengers or warlords. We found records, fragmented AI relics from dead worlds. They tell us the Forgeborn wiped out entire civilizations. Not for conquest, but containment. Anything they couldn't control, they destroyed. Ashrakar was proof of that. A survivor. A rebellion in flesh. The Varellan emissary chimed in, and the moment he revealed himself, they returned. That means there may be others, dormant, scattered, buried across the galaxy. Rivik stepped forward. And you want to find them? The Admiral met Kayla's gaze. We want you to help us do that. Kayla said nothing for a long moment. Then, you're not recruiting me because of my science. You're recruiting me because I loved him. Yes, the Admiral said without flinching. Because only someone who saw him for what he really was, who fed him, protected him, and believed in him, can help us understand the ones we may find next. Kayla's hand tightened into a fist, and then slowly relaxed. I'll do it, she said, but not to help you control them. The Admiral hesitated. Then why? To remind them that someone is still listening. Weeks later, Kayla stood once again on the surface of Altari. 3. This time in an excavation suit reinforced with Genesis Accord tech. Rivik was beside her along with a new team, exolinguists, psychic analysts, archaeogeneticists. They had returned to the original cave. Ashrakar's old nest. Kayla knelt by it, her fingers brushing the remains of his copper and blanket bedding, still undisturbed after all this time. Dr. Rhwynen, a tech call from behind her. We found something, under the lowest stratum metallic layer. Looks artificial. Kayla rose and walked to the excavation site. They brushed away the dust and stone. And there, embedded in the bedrock, was a single scale. It was larger than her hand, polished like obsidian and pulsing faintly. Alive. She reached out and touched it. And in that moment, a voice brushed against her mind. Kayla. She gasped. The others froze. I'm not gone. I am becoming. Her eyes welled with tears. Ashrakar, you gave me life. Now I give you memory. A gift for what's to come. Then silence. But the scale continued to glow. Kayla stood slowly and smiled. She turned to Rivik. He's still out there. Rivik nodded. Then so are we. They stared up at the stars. And far, far beyond them, on a distant world or in the hidden folds between dimensions, something ancient, something free, watched them back. And waited. 3 decades passed. Altari 3 was no longer a forgotten research rock buried in the backwaters of the Orion Spur. It had become something else, something sacred. They called it Ashra's Cradle now. Not just a planet, but a pilgrimage site. The place where the first of the Starborn was raised. Not engineered, not activated, but nurtured by a human. A monument marked the crater where Ashrakar had risen in defiance of the Forgeborn. Its spires stretched like flame toward the sky, forged from remnants of the Vanguard Dawn and encased with heat-tempered glass. At the center stood a statue, Kayla Rhwynen in her worn expedition suit, one hand outstretched, feeding a small drake perched on her shoulder. No weapon, no crown, only kindness. And that made all the difference. The story of what happened on Altari 3 spread faster than any official report. It transcended species, language, borders. It became legend. In the minds of many, it became more than truth. It became a beginning. Because Ashrakar had not died. He had changed. And the message he left behind, through his memory, through Kayla, through the buried fragments of his essence, sparked something the universe had not seen in thousands of years. Hope. Across the stars, the effects of his awakening rippled. In the Varellan Ascendancy, long dormant AI that had once sealed their minds began to glitch and falter. Their people, once molded to obey, now whispered old songs forbidden since the Skyfall. On Grelhax, deep in the Shard Nebula, a young prince stood before his ancestors' war shrines and declared them empty lies. If a human could raise a star-forged god with food and love, he said, then what are we waiting for? Entire philosophies restructured themselves around this new truth. Not that humans were powerful, not that they were destructive, but that they changed things. Not through war, through choice, through patience, through stubborn, inconvenient compassion. The Genesis Accord grew into something more than a task force. It became a diplomatic beacon, a multi-species coalition with Kayla Rhynn as its figurehead. Though she never sought power, she led research, not armies. She carried no weapon, commanded no fleet. But every member who joined swore an oath built on her 7 years of silence and sacrifice. We feed the fire of the forgotten. We do not let memory die. The Accord's mission was clear. Seek the hidden children of the stars, the sleeping anomalies, the broken, scattered, silenced rebellions. Not to contain them, to heal them. But not everyone welcomed this awakening. The Forgeborn were not dead, merely retreating. They watched, waited, rebuilt. Their defeat on Eltari 3 was not total, merely strategic. And now that Ashrakar's legacy had lit fires across the galaxy, they began cataloging new anomalies with renewed focus. They sent their scouts deeper. They sharpened the blades of gods. They knew the shape of rebellion now, and they knew its face. It wore human eyes. Kayla Rhynn retired from active missions in her 60s, after a near-fatal encounter with a sentient black hole guardian on the world of Varys Kai. But she never stopped writing, never stopped teaching. In the final decades of her life, she published a collection of essays titled The Scales We Feed, part memoir, part scientific hypothesis, part emotional reckoning. It became required reading across the Accord. The first chapter ended with a simple line. I fed him because he was hungry. Everything that followed was just the universe remembering what love feels like. No propaganda, no grandeur, just truth. She died quietly, in orbit over Ashra's cradle, holding a carved figurine of a tiny dragon made from the first scale she ever found. But that wasn't the end, not even close. A century after Ashrakar vanished into light, a transmission was intercepted by the Accord's deep space monitors. It originated from outside the mapped edges of the Galactic Veil, from a region no vessel had ever returned from. The message was a single phrase. Fire remembers. The voice wasn't Kalis. It wasn't human, but every scanner confirmed it. The pattern matched Ashrakar's energy resonance. Not just his species, not just his code. Him, Ashrakar, the last of the star-scorched. Still alive, still free, still watching. That single message reshaped everything again. The Accord doubled its reach. New embassies were built on ancient ruins once considered cursed. Entire civilizations rejoined the galactic table after hearing the name Ashra. And humans? They were no longer considered weak or warlike or curious pests wandering where they didn't belong. They were feared by some, revered by others, but above all, they were respected, because where others sought control, humanity offered empathy. Where others erased anomalies, humanity raised them. And in the darkest corners of the stars, old monsters began to stir. Some wanted vengeance, but some whispered Kayla Rynn's name like a prayer. Not as a scientist, not as a leader, but as the one who fed the fire. One final monument exists now. It floats in a ring of stardust beyond the shattered remains of the Forgeborn core worlds. No coordinates are published. No empire claims it. It is simply there, waiting, a towering obsidian obelisk etched in multiple languages. She fed him when he was small. He burned the stars so others could be free. At its base lies a flickering flame that never extinguishes. Pilgrims come. Some kneel. Some weep. Some leave offerings. Feathers, poems, bits of circuitry, old data crystals from lost ships. And sometimes, when the night is quiet and no ships pass for weeks. A voice whispers across the static. Just 3 words, spoken softly, like a promise. Kayla, I remember. Final line. Long after stars burned out and empires crumbled, the galaxy still remembered the woman who fed a dragon and lit the fire of forever.